Softly into my ear, you told me to pull up the blind and look onto the horizon, make the world possible again, full of hope and levity. But this mutual bondage of islanders as a water sign on a land with water people, it ain't enough to try luck without prior planning. We look at or to each other with wonder, but it wasn't in the same measure as the way we broke our chains. All the salmon have chlamydia in Scotland, and we were disillusioned by the packaging. What we needed was not the same as wanting, but it made for better refusal of unpayable debt, to be forgiven or having received forgivingness. Much ado in the late spring to mislay a claiming, not to be emptied or excavated by remonstration, had forced a defense of poetry out of the songs. Popular calls taught restitution, flabbergasted aroma, or was it an arrhythmia apposite to the disclaimer? Broader feeling over the sink of realism rose up, alabaster overtures in Euro-modern surplus good. Disgust abound won't surfeit for purpose things. We felt the urge to put our heads through the walls, may have awoken to claret blue dusk in the suburbs, sat on the edge. We realized it was not so optimistic to live in paper and its texture in flight from logic. We became universal individuals by not partaking in the measure. We weren't commiserated or raised, and we heard each other kicking through the earth. Wondered wherein we were of southern Kemet, in search of the opening of Ka, at the moment where beyond justice seemed fated, a current of worldliness and of world loving, we the people wandered into and of the same, whereof the burlesque style. Love is the form of the global public. Reclamations exist in queerness, where we were all in a traced origin, chasing to stand apart or there apart from. To breathe is not to work. Refuge in the ing, hubbub in the roads, a repartee as decks turn over, portable as sound, exurient for a nutritional stupefaction, i.e. the dance. We broke away as soon as representation was afoot, fuckery at hand, 'cause Duppy knows who to frighten. Oh shit, thank you. I belched out slogans at a demonstration. The police drowned them out with sirens. Those who resist are arrested. Those who resist are ignored by their elected representatives. Demands are met only partially or not at all. Invasions and violations happen daily, privately, behind the veil of digitality. First they will come for your right to protest, then they come for your papers, then they come for your body. In the late winter's first blue sky, you approach me with the cruelty of good humor. That is how it seems, for how can a smile or a dimpled cheek not remind of loss? Rhetoric makes of language a tool to rouse or to manipulate, and poems flush in the house, haunting the huddled together with dandyish promises and Victorian values, steadfast with work ethics. What was the best part of your week, you ask? Well, what is the best part of any week? Made a feudal serfdom of all that constitutes pleasure, all that made life a possibility, a privilege. Now trapped in the tomorrow that comes like a bell tolling for a crowd, but it clangs out the code we walk on, treading daffodils in dread by Windmill Row on Lower Marsh, wilting flowers, the romance conjured only when every breath breaks the law. You want to incorporate me into what exactly? Assimilation, toleration, the gelatinous, moribund, locomotive narcissism of belonging. It is sticky and disgusting. Ain't no tribe, no ethnicity, no custom that could classify me. I'm not with solemn reflection. Just what I saw at the river's edge was sly civility, shy mimicry, liminal perversions of potentia that I couldn't hold in any more than I kept you out now, but to rest, or to say it rests on a long, long song carried in the imagination, a flight from, a fright of, sovereignty is not the savior, and no complex of needing to be saved, like how the dates lined up in a binary, a contraction of the march into a standstill. Our rebellion was a fucking guided tour of a park in the city, and I stood on any bench and I looked up into the rain. It was clear as any day. Bad diaspora poetry. Bad diaspora poetry is exhumed as a fresh response to shit we've been wading through since the 16th century. I am still very tired, and no amount of cooking recipes masquerading as verse will rectify structural issues like our search for a constitution. I want to reach a hand out to my enemies and ask them to learn with me how the otherwise of being raced is internalizing race as a measure of our value, which we rescript as culture, heritage, ethnicity. I don't want those limits any longer. Calling me a person of color euphemistically just says colored, politically correct, bland fanatics of the creative industries. They are happy to sell themselves and their fucking families for the prestige of imagery and fame. If all you do with this critique is shame it for coming from a man of color, then we've really got a lot of learning to do, because I never heard of the phrase identity political poet until you deemed it necessary to write a blog about it. And now we're repeating ourselves, and now we're inframing ourselves through a gaze you call white but legitimize every time you write. The talking heads want to build a Starbucks on my motherland. They give me feedback on a manuscript. I should not have used my name, instead referred to myself as a brown person who writes poetry. It should be for everybody. I should use simpler language. At least explain it to your reader. The British Council demeaned my spine, said it was a nice little pamphlet, and told me to go and read on an open mic slot at the Poets Cafe in Covent Garden, surrounded by white suburban mums, teeth blued by burgundy. I took cold Denya with me for moral support. We dressed as clowns and, bearing our asses to the crowd, farted on the stage. We were asked to leave. There might as well be nothing outside of theory. It's the only thing that kept me going in the tough mudder of broken economic faculties. Institutions, colonial or otherwise, crumble like a croissant, and the idea that ash is fertile for rebirth seems febrile in this landscaped garden. Offline and out there, I know a forest has many stems. To defy logic and reason that left the room I entered. Liberation has no theology. I left Allah in the mosque when I went to the protest. I gave no takbirs for Sheikh Jarrah. I let Palestinian women teach me the dabka. A prominent South Asian artist asks me when I last prayed Salah. It makes no sense. His story from below, trudged through snow, pithy rhymes for libertarian times. I know what I know, you think you know what you talk about. And to call politics something you or I identify with removes bases from facts, like how this is in English, or how what Senghor and Césaire did to the slur by reversing the accent in negritude cannot be done for me. A paki is a paki, a kuli is a kuli, and I cannot reclaim those words which unmake me from history. I'm going to end with a sequence from the original sequence of poems, which I wrote 5 years ago in solidarity with people who were trying to migrate to the UK or elsewhere. And we've witnessed this country's reaction to that this year, last year, the year before that. And people recently died this week trying to cross the English Channel. So this is for them. I resurfaced from the watercloth. My soul is with Lal Shabazz, looking at the turn of the tourniquet, my neck exposed in the grey water, halved over borders, quartered in quarantine, my black gaping eyes of mourning. The watercloth took me into a new neurology. I felt compressed and bathypelagic like an uncontrolled urban spread, forced into a point, lugging this burden of staying still with all the ways of knowing. I washed up as human contraband, greeted by hazmats on the sandbanks, left under tarpaulin at the mercy of your disinfectant sprays and orderly truncheons. I wore my hair proudly as a seashell necklace, swimming in endless, colourful coral. I swam across shores to find the pearl that will liberate me from this Rousseau's penance. The sea is so deep and majestic, swallowing us in admiration and fear. Take me to the bottomless depths of a person I wish to meet and to become. The waves crash onto the chalk and crash again and again and again into the loving torment you bring to me, drowning in your silence. My drowning nourishes your eyes, and in your passivity, overflowing all passivity before the simulation, you ban my existence without an apology. Is a bomb or a ban more palatable? When we go to sleep at night, do our mattresses rise up hysterical and regurgitate the stillborn traumas of unlivable lives? In the bitumen for comfort, I was the baying hound kept from a new moon. I long for but whine alone at the crescent's close. Fugacious yet fecund, they call me maniacal for my lack of hyacinths and abuse of poppy nationalisms. I stabbed his moth into my solar plexus, punched the new sky's plexiglass and cast each poem as a kiss of death to all words lying resilient against your frame of silent witnessing, thankful for boot heels and bad moods belt buckles. I shimmer in agony across the line, screaming through this bitten flesh. I saw you there in the pyrethroid hue with your back turned in blue verdure. Their insignia was cauterized in your smile, leaving your shoulder blades ruptured as the date palm flutters its thorny wail. I found mud and shrapnel to make you, these maquettes, all prisoners to silicon tours, and there you stand with your pierced lips, gawking like slaughtered goats on Eid ul-Fitr. Thanks.